Hi, welcome back, everyone. So, Tom's given us some great views about technology, and particularly from a technology vendor perspective. I guess a view as to how people, products, and the business itself can be far more connected than ever. Now, what I'd like to do now is change tack to understand a little bit more about what are our customers saying to us. I mean, we spend a lot of time visiting and talking to customers around the world, and particularly within the region. So to do that, I am really pleased that I am joined by Alexander Honigman. He is Sales Director, Retail and Logistics for our DACH region for Zebra. So welcome, Alex.
Morning, Mark. Thank you.
Alex, thank you for joining me. It is a really interesting time for retail around the world. Lots of challenges, but I think also lots of opportunities. You and your team are out there. They're working with retailers across the DACH region on a daily basis. So I'm sure you're getting plenty of feedback. Can you share some insights and thoughts as to what your customers are telling you, particularly around what are the main challenges they're facing right now? What are the questions they're asking you? And maybe how have they changed over the last year or so?
Yes, I can certainly. I would like to come to the challenges first. And I think the biggest challenge applies not to only retail, but to all other industries, that basically changes had to be made very quickly because new situations did appear. Which is probably only true for retail, is that many of these challenges have existed for more than a year already and were on the to-do list, but never have been touched. But certainly the pandemic has spotlighted them. So I think one of the best examples is probably omnichannel, which is around for many, many years, but the need has jumped over the last 12 months because people have to stay at home. And the online has been used more. So next to omni-channel, and the shift to online, of course, there also have been other challenges, like the need for more sustainability, green practice, of course, constant challenges to manage operational costs, especially because I have seen more people in the shops. I'm not sure if that is true also in other countries, and in general, the digitalization. And I think because of all that, retailers have to invest in new processes to adapt, such as picking for online orders, click and collect, or as recently in Germany demanded by the government, click and meet. So all these represent additional costs and complexities that have to be addressed now. And that means, depending on the retail shop you are running, means more staff, more technologies, or even both. And from what I'm hearing from our customers, that the retail strategy of our customers is a much more complex topic right now, because maybe of all the tasks which have been spotlighted, and a lot of different business functions are being involved now. So from store operations to loss preventions, IT, and even HR. And all these functions we are seeing more and more in our technology meetings that we have with our customers, or most of them on a regular basis. And one example I would like to point out, and I think that also has been picked up by Tom just now, so that we're having a lot of discussions with our retail customers around advanced analytics. Mm-hmm. So not just analytics to understand the business better, but prescriptive analytics to actually leverage the data that creates tasks for the store staff to move from reactive to proactive, and thus probably prevent customer dissatisfaction. So, and these discussions we're having with multiple customers right now, and these are taking place with operations, loss preventions, and IT all together, because they all can benefit from this kind of analytics solutions. And very interesting for me was, and that's probably even more important, that the retailer sales departments or even shop owners are being engaged in these discussions, because their sales and their margins are directly, possibly, or positively impacted.
That's a lot of input there, Alex. And if I can dissect some of it, you talked about added complexity, and I certainly see added complexity even in what things are being called. So we have BOPIS, Boris, click and collect. You talked about click and meet. We have curbside as well. I mean, all of these are, I guess, different sides, probably of the same coin when it comes to that online piece, that shift online, and I guess the complexity around that. You talked about picking, and that's certainly somewhere. Do you pick from store? Do you pick from warehouse? So that drives, I guess, additional sets of questions, and businesses have to change that, not only their processes, but as Tom mentioned, some around their inventory as well. So, but I don't think, certainly what we've seen over the last 12 months, the store is not dead. People are still shopping in stores. You said yourself, you're seeing a lot of people now returning to physical stores. And one thing that I've certainly noticed is an increase in self-service technologies. And don't get me wrong, countries like the Netherlands, UK, Sweden, etc., have been very strong and have adopted self-service technologies for many years. It's not necessarily a new thing. But even for them, we saw a big spike, a big increase in the use of technologies such as scan and go over the last 12 months. I mean, historically, the DACH region, Germany in particular, has been slower to adopt those sorts of self-service technologies like scan and go. Are you seeing that continuing, or are you seeing it changing?
It's actually a good question, and there's a really simple answer to it. It's yes. So we have had mobile self-scanning in some German retailers, but only very few and not across Germany. So, for example, I'm not able to do mobile self-service scanning because there's no shop in my area. And as you said, in the Netherlands and in Switzerland, the scan and go technology is very common for many, many years. And they are using even the third or even second or even third generation, I think. But the good thing is, as I said already, I see that changing in Germany as more and more retailers are running pilots right now. And also the shoppers, maybe also because of the pandemic, seem to be more willing to make use out of these new self-service options in general. And I know that almost all large grocery retailers have scan and go on top of their priority list right now. And we also know from other customers and from those retailers that piloting scan and go already, that customer loyalty seems to improve, basket size does increase, and that staff can be more productive. And especially at these times where the people have to take on other tasks, such as picking for online orders, this ability to use the staff differently is a huge benefit.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And the other conversations I'm having with retailers around that sort of scan and go technology is the fact that it puts a digital screen in front of those customers that are using it, which gives those retailers the ability to engage in a much more one-to-one digital way, even with customers that are in the store. I guess personalized promotions, messages, adverts, etc. So I think that's certainly something to look at as those types of solutions advance in the future. Let's go back to something that Tom talked a lot about in his session earlier, and certainly in the US and also in the UK. One of the things we've seen is that product availability, so the inventory side of things, seems to have risen right to the top of the priority list. I mean, Tom mentioned it's always been important, but because of, I guess, omni-channel fulfillment and because of customer satisfaction and the ability for customers to choose with their feet, if you like, by walking, going somewhere else, it's important that their stock is on the shelves. But it's also important that the pickers who are picking for online orders have that available because they want to avoid substitutions, I guess. So inventory seems to be more important than ever. Is that something you're seeing with your customers?
Yes. Yes, we hear that too. And I think there are two real drivers here. So firstly, the fact that shoppers are very frustrated, and obviously me too, when they do not find their favorite brand in the store, because maybe they even went for that product into the store because it's just out of stock. And the negative impact on customer satisfaction probably is even getting worse. Shoppers sometimes have to queue now to enter a store nowadays, because the amount of people which are allowed to go into the store, even though it's just temporarily, are regulated by the countries or by the government. So, and secondly, as more and more retailers have to fulfill online orders from the store, so they don't do it from a warehouse, out of stock has a second negative impact, because on their picking efficiency as well. So this may lead to product substitution, which is not very popular and, to be honest, not very often used in German retailers, or simply an order which is not being picked completely. So getting the right balance of stock has probably never been so important as it is now. And to be honest, I have had the experience of dissatisfaction a couple of times myself, when we have ordered something online and the important bits of our basket were not available when we have picked up the basket from the store, right? And it has impressed me, however, that many retailers have actually addressing these issues or enhancement, beside that their shops have been closed for many months sometimes. And even in Germany, we have seen new rollouts of RFID projects, bringing visibility into stores, giving more stock visibility. And also we have seen pilots on robots in grocery stores to gain better inventory visibility through automation. And a statement which is, I think, true for retail and logistics in general, that we have seen much more projects over the last 12 months than we usually have.
That's interesting. So, yeah, you're saying something pretty much that Tom was also saying about that shift towards automation, that shift towards auto ID, I guess RFID as a way of seeing things as well, robots in stores. So it sounds like that may well be part of the future, part of the way to get that better visibility of stock and inventory on shelves. And I guess especially at this time, because added to by the COVID pandemic, which has hit many retailers particularly hard, margins are certainly under pressure. Tom talked about the tolerances within retail now being very low. So if retail is a machine, then these days it's a very finely tuned machine. So the tolerances are very, very low. And I guess if you're looking to improve your margins, then, as Tom mentioned, the largest operational expense for retailers is the staff. So getting that piece right, the right number of staff at the right time and doing the right tasks is fairly critical. I guess the difficult topic around that is if you're adding automation into the process, do you think we're going to see a reduction? Retailers look to reduce the numbers of staff in the store as a result of that?
Yeah, I can follow the thought process, and perhaps that may be the initial reaction, that there is an opportunity to reduce staff. But to be honest, that's not what I'm hearing from the retail customers I'm talking to. Actually, I have heard more or less the opposite. For example, I've spoken to one of the top 3 German grocery retailers a couple of weeks back, and they have told me that they see, with the introduction of new technology, and big data might just be one example out of it, an increase of work for staff. But I think the key thing here is that the right work is now being added. So concentration-intensive tasks like comparison of lists or verifying price labels can be automated now. So those new tasks which will be being applied will get the store operation more efficient. And with that, I mean replenishment or planograms, or even tasks related to online fulfillment. And all this does impact customer satisfaction, which you basically just mentioned. And makes your store more competitive, because, as you said, customers are much more sensitive when it comes to product availability and all those kind of stuff. And I think it's even more important than ever to ensure that the staff and the people in the store have the access to the right technology and the data linked to the analytics, that they're able to make the right tasks and serve the customers better. And that was why I was really pleased that Zebra has bought Reflexes last year, as their suite of staff-centric solution does combine perfectly with our hardware, our communications, and our analytics solutions. And that helps basically retailers to transform their businesses. Mm. I don't know how it's in other countries, but in a lot of shops, I have seen more employees than before COVID. And our solutions like Workforce Connect allows better communication between those colleagues, maybe also new ones. Reflexes also does help to apply the right people to the right shifts, to the right tasks, and also helps to introduce click and meet. As I said, it was recently demanded by the German government, as Reflexes has a module which can be integrated with a decent amount of effort to existing customer websites. So from my point of view, Zebra is a much better place now to have those strategic discussions with. And our customers responding very well to this. But as you have to introduce my responsibility, I'm just representing the German-speaking countries, and I would be very interested. What's your holistic view across Europe, Mark?
Yeah, no problem. I think, look, we often talk to different retailers, and they think retail is different in each country. I think the reality is, the vast majority of retail is the same. We're all trying to meet the needs and expectations of our customers. Those expectations have certainly changed over the last few years. COVID has acted, as you've said, as an accelerator, as a catalyst on some of those expectations, and also some of the pressures on retail. So we've seen that leap, that shift online, but online was happening already. I think this puts more pressure on retailers to make the decision as to how they go online and to where they focus first, whether they focus first on their online business, on their mobile business, or their stores. As I mentioned before, certainly, I don't believe the store is certainly not dead. And we have seen people like Amazon in continuing to grow its physical footprint of stores. They recently opened 2 Amazon Fresh, so Amazon Go style stores in the UK, in London. So they're clearly expanding that concept as well, as they look to increase what the industry calls frictionless retail. But that doesn't mean staffless. And you talked very well about how staff are being redeployed to other roles. And I think that's the key as well. In fact, those Amazon Go stores have more staff than a typical convenience store, because the level of customer service in terms of keeping the product on the shelf is absolutely critical. I am seeing an increase, as you mentioned, in requests and discussions around analytics. How do we understand our business better, particularly around the getting that information in more close to real time and turning that information into actions. So I think that's important. There's, of course, more discussions around automation. Robotics is clearly, you might call it a sexy topic, but it's certainly something that retailers are looking at very closely. And I think they should look at robotics, but they should look at the reason why robots might be introduced. And as you talked about, it's taking some of the more mundane, the boring, the easy to automate pieces out away from the staff, so staff can focus on customer service and engagement, because I think that engagement piece is absolutely critical. I also think, and I have this view that for the last 15, 20 years, staff in retail stores have been very operational. Wages have been relatively low, and we need to redress that balance. We need to think of staff in a retail store as our hosts. They're the people that are engaging. They're the front line, the edge, if you like, dealing with customers, dealing with complaints, but keeping the customers happy. It's the staff that the customer remembers at the end of the day. And I think the more we invest in our staff to empower them, to give them the data to be able to engage with shoppers in the aisle, to maybe take payments in the aisle, to change that way we think about staff in our stores so that they can add more value and be more productive. So I guess that's a very sort of short summary of my thoughts on what I'm hearing from retailers right now. As Tom Bianculli said in his session, using those sort of dashboards, historical data, and spreadsheets that retailers are still using to a great extent is not going to take them to the next stage. Certainly not now that we have so much digital input and information available from the online shopping journey. And we've got to try and put that into the physical store journey as well. So retail needs to start to think more about how it makes that data real time. And as Tom put it, systems of reality that drive not only information, but actions down to the staff, the people that matter, so that they can improve the customer experience.
But maybe let me add to that, because we have seen that in a project here where we applied Emma to a store and let run them for a couple of weeks. So basically, the obvious tasks were not the big benefit. The big benefit was basically the lists you just mentioned. And those were tasks which never have been done on a regular basis because there was no time, or was so time consuming, or the data was not constructed in a way that is easy to handle. So I think these new technologies, as you said, will widen your edge or your view, and you will get much more visibility on things you even don't know yet because you have never touched this before.
Yeah, absolutely right. I mean, we said before, shoppers have more choice now than they have ever had before. They have visibility out to websites internationally. Shipping is becoming lower cost, and more retailers are able to ship next day or even same day. And we're starting to see that race even to the sort of the same hour. So you order and then you have your products available within an hour. That for me is a challenge. It's potentially a race to the bottom in terms of margins, but it's certainly something that we have to look at, and therefore every element of every process has to be optimized. And I think that's where we may see an increase in staff as well. As you said before, I think as a business, Zebra is pretty well placed now to help retailers, both in terms of hardware, but also in terms of the optimization of staff and products and inventory, as Tom put it, the utilization factor. So I think we're certainly there, and we're willing to be that partner along that strategic transformation journey.